Hi, I'm Lorena. I'm 29 years old and I work as a medical technician at Mass General in Boston. For most of my life, I believed family was everything. I believed that blood was thicker than water, that you could always count on your relatives when the world turned its back on you. I believed that loyalty ran both ways. But I learned the hardest lesson of my life when my younger sister Mercedes turned $47,000 of my savings into ashes. And when I needed them most, my entire family abandoned me to die alone. If you've ever trusted someone blindly and had that trust shattered into a million pieces, please subscribe to this channel. I promise I'll tell you this story all the way to the end, and you'll see that justice, however delayed, does eventually arrive. But before we get there, let me take you back to the moment everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday morning in March. I remember because I just finished a double shift at the hospital and my feet were killing me. I stopped at the ATM on my way home to deposit my paycheck. I had been saving aggressively for 2 years, building an emergency fund because healthcare workers know better than anyone how quickly life can turn upside down. $47,000. Every cent earned through overtime shifts, skipped vacations, and living in a cramped studio apartment. While my friends bought nice furniture and went to brunch every weekend, I inserted my card, entered my PIN, and watched the screen load. The balance appeared. My heart stopped. $532. I blinked. I checked the account number. It was mine. I requested a receipt, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. $46,468 withdrawn over the past 3 months. Multiple transactions, all authorized. I stood there in the cold Boston wind, staring at that receipt, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath my feet. I immediately called the bank. The representative, a kind woman named Christina, pulled up my account. She confirmed what I already knew but couldn't accept. The withdrawals were legitimate. They'd been made in person at various branches by someone with access to my account. Someone I'd added years ago, back when I still believed family meant safety. Mercedes, my younger sister. 26 years old, beautiful, charismatic, and apparently a thief. I didn't want to believe it. I called her immediately, my fingers trembling as I pressed her contact. It rang 4 times before she answered, and I could hear music in the background, laughter, the clink of glasses. Lorena, hey, what's up? Her voice was bright, carefree, completely unburdened by guilt. Mercedes, where are you? Oh my God, you won't believe it. I'm in Santorini. The water here is insane. Like, pictures don't even do it justice. My stomach dropped. Santorini, as in Greece. Yeah, I'm here with some friends. We rented this incredible villa. Actually, hold on. I heard her phone shift, and then she was video calling me. My screen filled with her face, sun-kissed and glowing, the Aegean Sea sparkling behind her. She flipped the camera to show me a pristine white villa with an infinity pool overlooking the caldera. Isn't it gorgeous? This trip was so last minute, but I just needed a break. I couldn't speak. I watched as she panned the camera across a table laden with champagne bottles, fresh seafood, and what looked like caviar. My sister, who'd been between jobs for the past year, was living like a celebrity. Mercedes. My voice came out flat, dead. Where did you get the money for this? She laughed, a tinkling sound that made my blood run cold. Oh, I've been doing some freelance consulting. Plus, I'm finally getting my social media presence off the ground. You should see my Instagram. I'm almost at 10,000 followers. Mercedes, my savings account. $47,000. It's gone. The briefest pause. Then her smile faltered, just slightly. Oh, that? Listen, you said I could borrow a little when I needed it, remember? Back when you added me to the account? A little? $47,000? Don't yell at me. Besides, family helps family, right? You're always going on about how important family is. I was struggling, Lorena. I needed this. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. You needed a trip to Greece? You needed to steal my entire life savings for a vacation? Her face hardened. It's not stealing. It's our account. And honestly, you're being really dramatic right now. I'm literally living my best life and you're trying to ruin it with your negativity. This is exactly why you're always alone. She hung up just like that. Hung up. I stood there in the parking lot of a Bank of America holding my phone, watching her Instagram story update in real time. A photo of her holding a Hermes bag, caption, treating myself because I deserve it. The bag cost $12,000. I recognized it because one of the surgeons at the hospital carried the same one. If you've ever felt your entire world collapse in a single moment, you know what I experienced then. It wasn't just the money, it was the betrayal, it was the casual cruelty. It was the realization that the person I'd protected, defended, and supported for 26 years saw me as nothing more than a resource to be drained. I didn't go home. I drove straight to my parents' house in Quincy, a 40-minute drive through traffic that felt like 4 hours. My mother, Gloria, answered the door, flour on her hands from baking. Lorena, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting you until Sunday dinner. I pushed past her into the living room where my father, Eduardo, was watching golf on TV. We need to talk about Mercedes. My mother's face immediately shifted to defensive mode. I'd seen that expression my entire life, the one that appeared whenever anyone suggested her precious youngest child might be less than perfect. What about Mercedes? She stole $47,000 from my savings account, every cent I've saved for the past 2 years. She's in Greece right now, spending it on luxury vacations and designer bags. My father finally looked up from the television. That's a serious accusation, Lorena. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. She admitted it to me on the phone 30 minutes ago. My mother wiped her hands on her apron, her mouth pressed into a thin line. Mercedes just needed a break. Do you have any idea how much pressure she's under? Trying to build a career in social media marketing, dealing with the stress of being young in this economy? I stared at her. Are you seriously defending this? I'm saying you need to be less uptight about money. Mercedes will pay you back. She always does. When? When has Mercedes ever paid anyone back? I lent her $500 5 years ago. I never saw it again. My father sighed heavily. Don't be dramatic, Lorena. She's your sister. Family takes care of each other. You have a good job, you'll save it again. The words hit me like ice water. You have a good job. You'll save it again. As if 2 years of my life, 2 years of sacrifice and discipline meant nothing. As if I existed solely to fund my sister's lifestyle. She committed fraud, I said quietly. She forged my signature on withdrawal forms. You added her to that account, my mother shot back. You gave her permission. I gave her permission for emergencies, not for her mess bags and trips to Santorini. My mother's face flushed. You know what your problem is, Lorena. You've always been jealous of Mercedes, ever since you were children. She's beautiful, she's charismatic, she has ambition, and you've always tried to hold her back. The accusation was so absurd, so completely disconnected from reality that I couldn't even respond. I looked at my father, waiting for him to intervene, to say something reasonable. He just shook his head and turned back to his golf game. I think you should go, my mother said. Come back when you're ready to be rational about this. I left. I sat in my car outside their house and tried calling my older brother Rodrigo. He was 33, married with 2 kids, living in the suburbs with a good job at a tech company. The golden child, the one who could do no wrong. He answered after 6 rings. Lorena, kind of a bad time. Julia just got the kids down for a nap. I explained everything in short, clipped sentences. The missing money, Mercedes's confession, our parents' reaction. There was a long silence. Then Rodrigo sighed. Look, I get that you're upset, but this is between you and Mercedes. I have my own family to think about, my own bills to pay. I can't get involved in drama. Drama? Rodrigo, she stole $50,000 from me. 47, he corrected automatically. And technically, if she was on the account, is it really stealing? Maybe you should have been more careful about who you gave access to. That was when I realized I was completely alone. My sister had betrayed me. My parents had chosen her side without a moment's hesitation. My brother had dismissed my pain as inconvenient drama. The people I'd loved and trusted my entire life had decided I didn't matter. I drove home. I blocked Mercedes on everything: Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, even Venmo. I deleted the family group chat where my mother posted recipes, and my father shared bad political memes. I sat in my studio apartment, surrounded by secondhand furniture and clearance rack clothes, and I cried until I had no tears left. Then, 2 weeks later, I started coughing up blood. At first, I thought it was stress. Stress can do terrible things to your body, and I'd been under crushing pressure since discovering the theft. But the coughing got worse. Sharp stabbing pains began radiating through my chest every time I took a deep breath. I'd wake up in the middle of the night gasping, convinced I was having a heart attack. I tried to push through it. I couldn't afford to take time off work. Not now, not with my savings gone. But during a shift one Thursday night, I collapsed while helping a patient into a wheelchair. My colleagues rushed me to the ER. The attending physician, Dr. Patel, a stern woman I'd worked with for 3 years, personally oversaw my examination. The diagnosis came back like a death sentence. I had a congenital heart defect that had gone undetected for years, now complicated by an infection. I needed surgery, urgently. Without it, Dr. Patel explained in her careful, clinical voice, I had maybe 6 months to live. With it, my prognosis was excellent. The surgery will cost approximately $52,000. Yeah, she said. Your insurance will cover about 60%, but you'll still be responsible for around $20,000 out of pocket. Plus, you'll need at least 3 months off work for recovery. $20,000. I had $532 in my account. I had no savings. I had no family willing to help me. I was going to die because my sister wanted to drink champagne overlooking the Aegean Sea. I called my mother from the hospital bed. She picked up after 2 rings. Lorena, have you calmed down? Are you ready to apologize to your sister? Mom, I'm in the hospital. I have a heart condition. I need surgery or I'm going to die. Silence. Then, carefully, how much does it cost? $20,000. My insurance doesn't cover all of it. Another long pause. I could hear her breathing. Lorena, you know your father and I are retired. We're living on fixed income. We already helped Mercedes with her business startup costs last year. I felt something crack inside my chest, and it had nothing to do with my heart defect. Her business startup costs? You mean the money she used to go to Greece? To buy designer bags? That's not fair. Mercedes is trying to build something. She's an entrepreneur. These things take investment. I'm dying, I whispered. I'm your daughter, and I'm dying, and I'm asking you for help. You're being dramatic. You're not dying. You're young and healthy. You'll figure it out. We figured things out when we were your age. Besides, we just don't have that kind of money lying around. But you had money for Mercedes. That was different. Mercedes needed support during a vulnerable time. You're a medical professional, Lorena. You should have planned better. This is what emergency funds are for. The emergency fund your other daughter stole. I didn't say it. There was no point. I have to go, my mother said. Your father and I are meeting Mercedes for dinner. She's back from her trip and she has the most amazing stories. I'll tell her you said hello. She hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, at the sterile white ceiling of the hospital room, at the IV drip feeding saline into my arm. I called Rodrigo next. He didn't pick up. I left a voicemail explaining that I was in the hospital, that I needed help. He texted back 3 hours later. Sorry to hear that. Hope you feel better soon. Can't help financially. Just bought a new house. I tried Mercedes. The call went straight to voicemail. She'd blocked me. That night, lying alone in that hospital bed, listening to the machine's beep and the nurse's shoes squeak in the hallway, I understood with perfect clarity that my family had decided I was expendable. Mercedes was the star, the one worth investing in, worth protecting, worth lying for. I was the supporting character, valuable only for what I could provide. Dr. Patel discharged me with a prescription for medications I couldn't afford and a referral to a cardiac surgeon. You have maybe 4 to 6 months before this becomes critical, she said gently. I'm sorry, Lorena. I wish I had better news. I went back to work because I needed the paycheck. I moved through my shifts like a ghost, taking vitals, filing paperwork, avoiding mirrors because I couldn't stand to see how hollow my eyes had become. The pain in my chest became constant, a vicious reminder that my body was failing me, just like my family had. Mercedes kept posting on Instagram. Monaco, Paris, Rome. She documented every moment of her European adventure, every expensive meal, every luxury hotel. My $47,000 spent on experiences she'd forget. In a year, while I slowly died. I was scrolling through her photos late one night, torturing myself, when I noticed something in the background of a photo she'd posted from Rome. A brass plaque on a wall. I zoomed in. It was the name of a bank, the same bank where she'd made multiple withdrawals from my account. That was when something shifted inside me. The despair began to transform into something else, something cold and precise. If I was going to die, I wasn't going to die as a victim. I wasn't going to let Mercedes and my family rewrite the story as poor Lorena, always so unlucky. I was going to make sure they understood exactly what they'd done. I started keeping records. I screenshotted every single one of Mercedes's Instagram posts, noting the dates and matching them against the dates of withdrawals from my account. I requested copies of every withdrawal form from the bank. I downloaded our old text messages, the ones where she'd promised to never forget the small loans I'd given her over the years, where she'd called me her favorite sister, where she'd said, "I owe you everything." I found an old shoebox in my closet, full of things from my childhood. Inside was a silver bracelet that had belonged to my grandmother, my mother's mother, who died when I was 16. Abuela Carmen. She'd been the only person in my family who'd ever really seen me, who'd valued me for more than what I could provide. I remembered her final words to me, spoken in her hospital room, with that same steady strength she'd carried her entire life. This bracelet protected me when no one else would, mija. Keep it close. Sometimes family isn't the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when everyone else walks away. I put the bracelet on. It was tarnished and loose, but wearing it made me feel less alone. Abuela would have been furious at what Mercedes had done, at how my parents had responded. She would have told me to fight. The coughing got worse. I started having episodes at work where I'd double over, gasping, tasting copper in my mouth. My supervisor pulled me aside and suggested I take medical leave. I couldn't. If I stopped working, I had no income at all. If I had no income, I definitely couldn't afford the surgery. 3 weeks after my diagnosis, I got a call from an unknown number while I was restocking supplies in the cardiac unit. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Lorena Vargas? Yes? This is Elena Morales. We went to BU together. I don't know if you remember me. I did remember her. Elena had been in my organic chemistry study group sophomore year. Brilliant, intense, always prepared. We'd lost touch after graduation. Elena, hi, how did you get this number? I'm a lawyer now, and I was doing some pro bono work at Mass General. I saw your name on a patient roster, and okay, I know this sounds creepy, but I asked around. People said you've been really sick, and I had to call. You saved my life once, Lorena. I don't know if you even remember. I didn't remember. I told her so. Finals week, junior year, I was having a complete breakdown in the library bathroom. I was going to drop out, go home, give up on everything. You found me there, and you sat with me for 3 hours. You helped me study. You convinced me I could do it. Because of you, I graduated. Because of you, I went to law school. I became successful, and I've always wanted a chance to pay that forward. My throat tightened. Elena, I appreciate the call, but I'm okay. You're not okay. I heard you need surgery and can't afford it. I heard your family isn't helping. Lorena, let me help you, please. I have money. I have resources. You don't have to do this alone. I started crying right there in the supply closet, surrounded by boxes of gauze and surgical gloves. For the first time since this nightmare began, someone was offering to help me, not because they owed me, not because they felt obligated, but because they genuinely cared. I can't ask you to do that, I managed. You're not asking, I'm offering. Actually, I'm insisting. I'm coming to the hospital tomorrow. We're going to figure this out together, and then we're going to make sure the people who did this to you face consequences. She hung up before I could protest. I slid down the wall of that supply closet, clutching my grandmother's bracelet. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't despair. I felt hope. And underneath that hope, I felt something harder, sharper. A determination that had been building since the moment my mother chose Mercedes over my life. My family thought I would quietly disappear. They thought I'd die with their secrets intact. Another unfortunate casualty they could mourn publicly while privately being relieved they didn't have to deal with me anymore. They were wrong. I was going to survive. And when I did, I was going to make absolutely certain they understood what they'd done. Not for revenge, though I won't pretend that wasn't part of it, but for truth, for justice, for every other person who'd been gaslighted by their family, who'd been told their pain didn't matter, who'd been sacrificed on the altar of someone else's dreams. I touched the bracelet on my wrist. Abuela Carmen had survived worse. So would I. And then, like she'd taught me, I would protect myself. Because when family fails you, you become your own fortress. You become your own hero. And sometimes you make damn sure the people who hurt you never have the chance to hurt anyone else the same way again. The war had just begun. Elena showed up at my apartment the next morning with 2 lattes, a leather briefcase, and the kind of focused intensity I remembered from our college study sessions. She'd changed since BU. Her hair was shorter, professional. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, but her eyes still had that same fierce determination. Okay, she said, settling onto my secondhand couch and pulling out a yellow legal pad. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out. I told her, all of it. The disappearing money, Mercedes's casual cruelty, my parents' gaslighting, Rodrigo's dismissal, the diagnosis, the impossible medical bills. Elena took notes, her pen moving rapidly across the paper, stopping me occasionally to ask clarifying questions. When you added Mercedes to the account, was there any documentation about the terms of access? No, it was just she asked to be added in case of emergencies. This was 5 years ago before she became whoever she is now. And the withdrawals, they were all in person? According to the bank, yes. Christina, the representative I spoke with, said Mercedes came to different branches. She showed ID, signed forms. Elena's eyes sharpened. She signed forms with your signature. They thought it was me. But it wasn't you, which means she forged your signature. That's not just theft, Lorena. That's felony fraud. The word hung in the air between us. Felony. Criminal charges. Prison time. Part of me recoiled from it. She was still my sister despite everything. But another part of me, the part that was dying because she'd stolen my emergency fund, felt a cold satisfaction. I need copies of those withdrawal forms, Elena said. I have a handwriting expert who can analyze them. I also need you to write out a detailed timeline of events. Every interaction with Mercedes, your parents, Rodrigo, everything they said, word for word if you can remember. Why? Because we're building a case. Not just a civil case for restitution, though we'll do that too. A criminal case. What Mercedes did is prosecutable, and she needs to face consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena became my lifeline. She helped me apply for emergency medical assistance programs. She connected me with a charity organization that funded surgeries for healthcare workers who couldn't afford their own care. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I'd spent 3 years helping patients navigate the system, and now I needed that same system to save me. But more than that, Elena helped me investigate. She requested official copies of all the withdrawal forms from the bank, citing potential fraud. When they arrived, she laid them out on my coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. Look at this, Yara, she said, pointing to the signature line on the first form. And then look at this. She handed me a piece of paper where I'd written my signature 10 times. See the difference? I did. Mercedes had gotten close, but she'd made mistakes. The loop on the L in Lorena was too wide. The tail on the G in my last name curved the wrong direction. Small differences, but consistent across all the forms. She practiced, I said quietly. She must have practiced copying my signature. Which proves premeditation. This wasn't an impulsive mistake. She planned this. Elena sent the documents to her handwriting expert, a woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, who'd testified in dozens of fraud cases. While we waited for the analysis, Elena dug deeper into Mercedes's activities. Her social media is a goldmine, Elena said, scrolling through Mercedes's Instagram on her laptop. She's documented every single purchase, every trip, every expense. She's literally created a public record of spending your money. We started building a timeline. March 12th, Mercedes posted a photo from a Gucci store in Miami. The caption read, "Treating myself to a new wardrobe." I cross-referenced it with my bank statement. March 12th, $8,000 withdrawn from a branch in Coral Gables. March 20th, she posted from Dubai. "Living my best life in this incredible city." March 20th, $12,000 withdrawn. April 2nd, Santorini. April 2nd, $9,000 withdrawn. Every post matched a withdrawal. Mercedes had been so confident she wouldn't face consequences that she documented her own crime. "She thinks she's untouchable," Elena said. "People like her always do until they're not." Dr. Chen's report came back a week later. Her conclusion was unequivocal. The signatures on the withdrawal forms had been forged, and forged by someone who had access to multiple examples of my genuine signature for practice. The statistical probability that I had signed those documents was less than 2%. "That's our smoking gun," Elena said. But we needed more. We needed witnesses, people who could testify to Mercedes's character, to the family dynamics, to the pattern of exploitation. That's when I remembered Sylvia Mendez. She'd been Mercedes's college roommate, and they'd stayed close for years. I'd met her dozens of times at family gatherings. She'd always seemed uncomfortable around Mercedes, like she was walking on eggshells. "I don't know if she'll talk to us," I told Elena. "Mercedes has a way of making people loyal to her." "Let me reach out," Elena said. "Sometimes people are waiting for someone to give them permission to tell the truth." Elena tracked down Sylvia through LinkedIn and sent her a carefully worded email explaining that she was representing me in a legal matter involving Mercedes. Within 2 hours, Sylvia called. "Thank God," she said, her voice shaking. "I've been carrying this guilt for months. Can we meet in person?" We met at a coffee shop in Cambridge, far from anywhere Mercedes might be. Sylvia looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hands trembling as she wrapped them around her mug. "Mercedes and I aren't friends anymore," she started. "I cut her off 3 months ago, but I've been terrified to say anything because she has a way of destroying people who cross her." "What happened?" Elena asked gently, her recorder visible on the table between us. Sylvia had consented to being recorded. "She bragged to me about you, Lorena, about the money. We were at brunch in the North End, and she was showing me photos from Greece, and I asked how she afforded it all. She laughed and said, 'My stupid sister has been funding my lifestyle for months and doesn't even know it.' Those were her exact words. Stupid sister." I felt the words like a physical blow. Stupid sister. Is that what I'd been to her? Not a person, not even a victim worthy of guilt, just stupid. She said you'd given her access to the account years ago and forgotten about it. That you were, quote, "too dumb to check your balance." She thought it was hilarious. She said even if you found out, your parents would take her side because they always do. "Do you still have those messages?" Elena asked. Sylvia pulled out her phone. "I have better than that. I recorded her. That day at brunch, something in my gut told me to turn on my voice recorder. I think part of me knew I'd need evidence someday." She played it for us. Mercedes's voice, crystal clear, describing exactly how she'd forged my signature, how she'd gone to different bank branches to avoid suspicion, how she'd timed the withdrawals to coincide with her trips abroad. She described it like it was a game, a clever scheme she'd pulled off. At one point, she said, "The best part is Lorena's probably too busy at that depressing hospital job to even notice." Elena's face was stone. "Can you send that to me?" "I already did. I emailed it to you before I even got here. And Lorena, I'm so sorry. I should have told you immediately. I should have done something." "You're doing something now," I said quietly. "That's what matters." The pieces were falling into place. We had the forged signatures, the expert analysis, the social media documentation, and now an eyewitness with audio evidence. But Elena wanted more. We need someone from the bank, she said. Someone who can testify to Mercedes' behavior during the withdrawals. I thought of Christina, the representative, who'd been so kind when I'd first discovered the theft. Elena and I went to the branch together, and I asked to speak with her privately. When I explained what we were doing, her face went pale. I remember her, Christina said. Your sister, I mean. She came in 3 times, always to my window because I work with high-value transactions. Each time she was nervous, fidgety. She kept checking her phone. The third time, she told me she was making the withdrawal because you were buying a house and needed cash for the down payment. I remember thinking it was strange to need that much cash, but the account access was legitimate, and the signature looked right. Would you be willing to testify to that? Elena asked. Christina hesitated, then she nodded. What she did was wrong. I'll testify. The surgery was scheduled for June 15th. Elena had worked miracles with the hospital financial department and the charity organization. I'd be responsible for only $5,000 out of pocket, which Elena insisted on loaning me interest-free. I tried to refuse, but she wouldn't hear it. You can pay me back when you're healthy, she said. For now, focus on surviving. The surgery was successful. Dr. Patel told me afterward that I'd been closer to catastrophic heart failure than she'd realized. Another month, maybe 2, and I wouldn't have made it. I spent 5 days in the hospital recovering, and Elena visited every single day, bringing books and terrible hospital coffee and updates on the case. We're ready, she told me on the day I was discharged. I've filed a police report for fraud and forgery. The DA's office is reviewing the evidence, and they're very interested. I've also filed a civil suit for restitution of the full amount plus damages. But Lorena, there's something else we need to talk about. What? Your parents. They've been calling me. They somehow found out about the legal action and they're trying to convince me to drop it. They're defending her. They're saying Mercedes made a mistake, that family shouldn't prosecute family, that you're being vindictive. Your mother left me a voicemail saying you're trying to ruin Mercedes's life out of jealousy. The gaslighting was so predictable it was almost funny. Almost. What did you tell them? I told them to stop contacting me and to get their own lawyer because Mercedes is going to need one. Over the next 3 weeks while I recovered, Elena prepared our case. The DA's office officially charged Mercedes with felony fraud and forgery. A warrant was issued. Mercedes, who'd returned from Europe and was living in an expensive apartment in the Seaport district, funded by my money, was arrested at a trendy brunch spot. The photos made the local news. Social media influencer charged with defrauding sister. My phone exploded. Rodrigo called, furious. How could you do this? She's your sister. You're going to ruin her life over money? She tried to ruin mine, I said calmly. She stole everything I had and left me to die. Where were you when I needed help, Rodrigo? He hung up. My mother called next, crying, begging me to drop the charges. Think about the family. Think about Mercedes's future. She made a mistake. She made dozens of calculated decisions, I corrected. And I've thought about the family. That's why I'm doing this, so she can't do it to anyone else. My father called last. His voice was cold. You're not welcome at family events anymore. You've chosen to betray us. Don't bother coming to Thanksgiving or Christmas. You're dead to us. I was already dead to you, I said. When I was dying, and you chose her anyway. This doesn't change anything, except now the truth is public. The trial date was set for October, but Elena was confident we'd never get that far. The evidence is overwhelming, she said. Her lawyer is going to push for a plea deal. She was right. In late July, Mercedes's attorney reached out to discuss terms. Elena insisted I be part of the negotiations. We met in a conference room downtown. Mercedes sat across from me, her lawyer, a slick man named Richard Kaufman, beside her. She looked different, smaller somehow. Her hair was pulled back and she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked young and scared. My client is prepared to plead guilty to a reduced charge, Kaufman said. Misdemeanor fraud instead of felony. In exchange, she'll pay full restitution, perform community service, and accept probation. No, Elena said immediately. Felony fraud or we go to trial. Your client forged signatures, made premeditated withdrawals, and spent nearly $50,000 of her sister's money while that sister was dying. We have testimony, recordings, expert analysis, and a social media trail that would make any jury convict in 20 minutes. Kaufman looked at Mercedes. She was staring at the table, tears running down her face. Mercedes Maud, I said. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine for the first time. Did you ever feel bad about what you did? She opened her mouth, closed it, then quietly, I didn't think about it. I wanted to live the life I saw other people living. I wanted to be someone important. So you made me nothing. She started crying harder. I didn't mean for you to get sick. I didn't know. You knew I was sick. I told you. You said I was being needy. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The apology felt empty, performed for the lawyers. But it didn't matter. This wasn't about apology. It was about consequences. Felony fraud. Elena repeated. Full restitution, 2 years probation, 500 hours community service. That's the deal. Kaufman looked at Mercedes. She nodded, defeated. We'll take it. The plea deal was finalized in August. Mercedes pled guilty, was sentenced according to the terms, and the judge added one more condition. She was prohibited from contacting me or any member of my family without my explicit written consent. But I wasn't finished. Elena and I had one more move to make. My mother had been planning her annual birthday celebration for September, a big event she held every year with extended family, friends, cousins I barely knew. She'd uninvited me via text. You're not family anymore. But Rodrigo's wife, Julia, who I'd always gotten along with, reached out privately. I don't agree with what they're doing to you, she said. I think you should come. I think they need to hear the truth. Gloria will throw me out. Then let her try. But Lorena, there are 15 people coming to this party who have no idea what really happened. They think you're the villain. Don't you want a chance to set the record straight? I thought about it for a week. Then I called Elena. How would you feel about crashing a birthday party? She grinned. I thought you'd never ask. The party was at my parents' house, the same house I'd grown up in. I could hear music and laughter from the driveway. Julia met us at the door, squeezed my hand, and let us in. The room went silent when I walked in. My mother, standing by the cake, dropped the knife she'd been holding. My father's face went red. Rodrigo stood up from the couch, and Mercedes, who I hadn't seen since the plea deal, went white. What are you doing here? My mother hissed. I told you not to come. I know, I said calmly. Elena stood beside me, her presence a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. But there are people here who deserve to know the truth. People who've been told that I'm vindictive, jealous, that I tried to ruin Mercedes's life over a simple misunderstanding. Get out, my father said. This is our house. In a minute. I pulled out my phone, connected it to their TV using the HDMI cable Julia had left out for me. The screen lit up with the first slide of the presentation Elena and I had prepared. What are you doing? Mercedes's voice was small, terrified. Showing everyone what really happened. I started the slideshow. Bank statements showing the withdrawals. Screenshots of Mercedes's Instagram posts, each one time-stamped and matched to a specific theft. The handwriting analysis from Dr. Chen, excerpts from Christina's testimony, and finally the audio from Sylvia's recording. Mercedes's voice filled the room, bragging about stealing from her stupid sister, laughing about forging signatures, explaining how she'd manipulated our parents into taking her side. The room was dead silent except for that recording. When it ended, I looked at my mother. She was crying, one hand over her mouth. My father stared at the screen like he couldn't process what he'd just heard. Rodrigo looked sick. You told me I was dramatic, I said to my mother. You told me I was jealous. You told me family takes care of each other. But when I was dying, when I needed you most, you chose her. You chose the person who stole everything from me and left me to die. And you called me the problem. Lorena, my mother whispered. I didn't know. She told us you'd given her permission, that you were being unreasonable. You didn't want to know. You wanted to believe her because she's easier to love than I am. She's prettier, more charismatic, more fun. I'm just the boring one with the practical job who helps people and doesn't demand attention. My father stood up. That's not true. Then where were you? When I called from the hospital, when I begged for help, when I told you I was dying, where were you? You were taking her to dinner. You were listening to her stories about Greece. You were funding her dreams while I was trying not to die. We didn't know the money came from you, he said weakly. You didn't ask, because it was easier not to. I looked at Mercedes. She was sobbing, hunched over in her chair. Part of me felt sorry for her. She looked broken, humiliated, destroyed. But I thought about the hospital bed, the chest pain, the terror of thinking I'd die alone because my family had abandoned me. You're not a bad person, I told her, but you made really bad choices, and those choices have consequences. You hurt me in a way I'm not sure I'll ever fully heal from. And Mom, Dad, you let her. You enabled her. You gaslit me when I told you the truth. So yes, I pressed charges. Yes, I sued her. Not because I'm vindictive, but because someone had to hold her accountable. Someone had to say that what she did was wrong. My mother reached for me. Lorena, please, we're sorry. We made a mistake. I stepped back. I know you are. And maybe someday I'll be ready to forgive you, but not today. Today, I just needed everyone to know the truth. I disconnected my phone from the TV. Elena and I turned to leave. As we reached the door, I heard my mother's voice. What do you want from us? I turned back. The whole family was looking at me, waiting. I thought about my grandmother's bracelet still on my wrist. I thought about Elena's kindness, about Christina's courage, about Sylvia's honesty. I thought about all the people who'd shown up for me when my own family had walked away. I don't want anything from you, I said. I wanted you to see what you did, to really see it, not the version Mercedes sold you or the story you told yourselves to feel better. I wanted you to understand that when you choose to believe a lie because it's comfortable, you destroy the people telling you the truth. That's it. That's all I wanted. I walked out of that house for the last time. Elena drove us to a diner in Brookline, and we ordered pancakes and coffee, and she told me stories about her cases until I stopped shaking. How do you feel? She asked. Free, I said, and I meant it. The anger was still there, the hurt, the betrayal, but it wasn't consuming me anymore. I'd told the truth. I'd faced them. I'd survived. I'd 3 months later, Mercedes sent me a letter. Elena advised me not to read it, but I did anyway. It was short, handwritten, smudged with what might have been tears. Lorena, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know sorry isn't enough, but I want you to know that I'm getting help. Real help. Therapy, financial counseling, everything. I'm working 2 jobs to pay you back. It's going to take years, but I'll do it. I destroyed your trust and almost destroyed your life. I can't take that back. But I'm trying to become someone who would never do that again. I hope someday you can believe that. Love, Mercedes. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe someday I'd be ready to let her back into my life in some small way. But not now. I went back to work in October, cleared by Dr. Patel with a clean bill of health. My coworkers threw me a small party, and I cried because they felt more like family than my actual family ever had. Elena and I have dinner once a week. She's become my best friend, my sister in all the ways that matter. She tells me I saved her life once, but the truth is we saved each other. I still wear my grandmother's bracelet every day. Sometimes I talk to her, tell her about my day, ask her what she'd do about my family. I think she'd be proud of me. I think she'd tell me I did the right thing. On the anniversary of the day I discovered the theft, I took myself to dinner at an expensive restaurant. I ordered everything I wanted, didn't look at the prices, and toasted myself with good wine. I'd rebuilt my savings to $12,000. Not what I'd had before, but growing. And I realized sitting there alone that I wasn't really alone at all. I'd built a new family, chosen family. People who showed up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Elena, Julia, Christina, Dr. Patel, Sylvia. Even my coworkers. They formed a constellation of support that my blood family had never provided. If you're reading this, if you've ever been gaslit by the people who should protect you, if you've ever been told you're the problem when you're really the victim, I want you to know something. You're not crazy, you're not dramatic, you're not too sensitive, and you deserve people in your life who believe you, who support you, who choose you, even when it's hard. Family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up, it's about who stays when things get difficult. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see your worth and build a new life with people who do. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. And if I can do it, so can you. Comment below and share your story. I'll read every single one. Because unlike my family, I believe you, and I always will.